a little like quarterly recap. Hi guys, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Lena, and this is where I talk about books and life and art and whatever catches my fancy at the moment, but really it's mostly books. Hey, oh, we're like really crooked here. Hold on, let me try and like straighten things out here. Is that better? Anyway, so it has been a minute since I have posted anything, mostly because I've just been very busy at work with everything as a teacher. Yeah, I've just been incredibly busy. And I am pregnant, so I am, well, really, I'm just sleepy all the time. So if I'm not working and accomplishing things for my job, I'm basically napping or caring for my toddler. So, you know, yep. But all that aside, I have still been reading lots of books and listening to lots of audiobooks. So I still have books to talk about, and I haven't yet this year in 2024. So it seemed like a good time to do a little reading recap. And I have done a good job keeping track of books that I have read so far this year. So I'm pretty proud of myself there because I tend to fall off journaling by this time. So yes, so that's good. One thing I'm doing differently this year too is I am really making an effort to read more library books. So I don't have as many physical books to show you, but I will put their image up here in the corner as I am sharing. But some of them I do have. My year started off really strong with The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. I loved this more than Hamnet, which I was surprised about because like I'm a big Shakespeare girly, and I loved this book so much. I could not put it down. And I'm not really a big historical fiction reader, so the fact that it just like gripped me so much right from the get-go. I think I read it in like just a couple days, and like it's like a decent sized book, so that's saying something. It follows this young girl, Lucrezia. She is one of the daughters of a ruler of Ferrara, like the De Medici family in Renaissance Italy. Because I'm an art teacher and I love art history so much, this was also really interesting. There were a lot of elements tied in that I just loved. I ate it up. If you are a person who loves art and historical fiction, if you enjoy, you know, Renaissance era stuff, really recommend. Was such an incredible story. I want not every word of it to be true because some of it's a little dark, but it was so good. It was really good, and I do recommend if you are a big historical fiction fan. The next book, really I read them kind of at the same time. Legends and Lattes. Yes, I finally got to it. I feel like I was the only person in the world who hadn't read this book yet. So this is a cozy fantasy about, I think it's an orc who opens a coffee shop in this town that's never had coffee before. All the adventures that go along with that, and this wonderful new friend comes to work in the shop, and they enjoy each other's company so much, and things are so pleasant. There was like some like mystery building a little bit, but I felt no stress at all while reading this, and it was good. It's not like the most memorable book I've read so far this year. While I was in it, I enjoyed my time, and it is not a place that I would mind going back to. So the next book I read was an audiobook that I read for Summerween, and it was The Shining. I believe the prompt was like a winter setting. It was great. It completely different than the movie. Not completely different than the movie, but very different than the movie. And I think I enjoyed it more. I know there are lots of people who feel like The Shining movie is like the best version of that story, but I really liked the book, and I was very much in suspense the whole time. Really enjoyed the journey of the wife's character in it, as well as the son. As a reader who doesn't have a ton of experience with Stephen King, I had a really good time with it. The only other Stephen King books that I have read are Pet Sematary and Salem's Lot. So those are the only other two that I have read so far. I don't know. I think Pet Sematary is still my favorite, but I think I enjoyed it more than Salem's Lot. So yeah. The next book I read for Winterween was Moon of the Crusted Snow. And I have this downstairs, but it's not here with me, so I'm still gonna put the image up. This was really short, but it was a really spooky take on like a wintry isolation story. Like everything is shut down and people are like worried they're not gonna have access to food. Strange people are coming to town trying to escape the like sickness and madness that is happening outside of their reservation that they're on. I think I just really enjoyed the isolation element of it for being like a winter read for me. So I did have a good time with it. And the last book that I read for Winterween was White Horse. I no longer have this one, or do I have it? No, I don't have it anymore. I gave it away. But this one was just okay for me. I did not love this by any means. Really, the only thing that is sticking with me from it was the really like early 2000s sparkly graphic t-shirts that the main character's best friend would wear. That's like all I can remember from it. So I really would have liked more of the mother ghost story line in that book, because yeah, I feel like it was just trying to do too much, and so it all just kind of got lost on me. So yeah. Hopefully I've got a little bit more memory now. The next book that I read was actually a reread, a second attempt for me, but it was Wayward, and I really enjoyed it the second time. The first time that I read it, I just was like, ugh, don't want to read about these women being abused by the men in their lives. This is horrible. I hate this. It was one that people kept having like great reviews of, and so I was like, okay, maybe I need to give it another try. Maybe I wasn't in the right headspace. Reading it the second time, I did enjoy it a lot more. The current day character, I was kind of like on, but the two historical storylines, I did really enjoy. Obviously, the cover is beautiful. I feel like no matter how I felt about it in the end, I probably wasn't going to get rid of it, because what a beautiful work of art to have on your shelves. The bugs and the mushrooms and the fruits, and you know, enjoyable if you like multi-generational stories and multiple timelines. I enjoyed the historical aspects of it, so yeah. Next was a really surprising one. I did not have really like any expectations going in, but Gold Diggers. I really haven't heard people talk about this very much. I believe it was released in 2021, and it was a book that my brother had gotten me for Christmas a couple of years ago. I don't remember even like why I had asked for it. It just like had caught my eye, and I really enjoyed this one. This is like a magical realism, and just the way that it was interwoven, like the magic was interwoven into the story, was just really captivating. I love a smart woman. There were smart women in this, but there was just like a lot of questions about morality and the choices that we make and what that means for who we are in the world. And so, I don't know, I just thought there were so many layers to this. I really had a good time. I really loved this. Next, I read a classic, which was War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. I wasn't quite sure what to expect going into it, but I had a fairly good time. It, of course, was written quite a while ago, so the science fiction and horror maybe elements of it are much different than the books that we're reading today. But I did think that it was really interesting, and it brought to my mind just like a lot of questions about like, is the like technology and stuff that we have in the world, is it the way that, was it going to be this way no matter what, or has science developed the way that it has because of H.G. Wells? You know, like it just had me like questioning not so much like the actual story, but like the impact that this author has had on our present day. And it just like opened up a lot of like deep thoughts and exploration for me, so I had a really good time with it for that reason. And last year I read The Invisible Man. This one I enjoyed a lot more. And this one, it has a really nice ending, and I'm like really surprised at the ending, so yeah. Next, I read the Beartown Trilogy. I read all 3 books, but I kind of think you could get by with just reading the first one. The second 2 kind of just felt like they were like dragging on for reasons I didn't know why. I don't know. I love Frederick Bachman, and I thought the first book was fantastic. I really, really loved it. A great story about this town that is trying to recover. The way that sports connect people of like all backgrounds and gives them like a common thing to root for, and the hope that comes along with that. I don't know. It was really enjoyable for those reasons. And that was the end of January. So those were, I think 14 books that I read in January. So then moving into February, first was the Book of Magic. I wanted to finish the 4 practical magic books because I had them all on my shelves, and I had originally read Practical Magic and was kind of like meh about it. I didn't love it, and so I stopped reading them, but I own them and I'm trying really hard not to buy books this year, so I was like, well, maybe it's time. So this one is like the youngest generation in the family, I believe. I really like how this series, like, you get to see the different characters at different points in their lives, and different like levels of experience that they have and that kind of thing. And I think like Sally Owens, like the Sandra Bullock character in the movie, is just like, I guess kind of like one of my least favorite characters out of like the whole family, and so maybe that's why I didn't care so much for Practical Magic. But I did really enjoy this one, which follows like her daughters. And then the one that was the prequel that followed the 2 aunts. Goodness, I loved that one so much. I loved all of them except for Practical Magic, as I'm like thinking back on it now. So that was kind of interesting. I don't know, maybe the movie just set my expectations too high, but the other books in the series, really great. Love them. The next book was a library book, but I had listened to Edenville, and this is like a horror story about this like small town that kind of like lures people in and they don't get to leave. You definitely are unnerved and know that something's wrong the whole time you're reading it, but I really can't tell you much more about it because I did not find it super memorable. Next was one of my book of the month books. Is it here? Do I have it? It's somewhere in my house. I don't know exactly, but it was The Stranger Upstairs. I think I liked it while I was reading it, but then when I got to the ending, I think I was really like disappointed and maybe a little salty. I'm gonna go back and look to see what so Edenville I had given 2 stars to, and I gave the same rating to The Stranger Upstairs. So I think I read them in the same week too. So I don't know if I was just in a bad mood or what was going on, but sometimes I enjoyed it, but other times I was really annoyed. So like I couldn't even really like put into words like how I was feeling or how I really wanted to rate it. If you have read it, share your thoughts with me, and maybe that will help guide me in whatever direction, because like I kind of am like, I feel nothing. And so that's why I gave it 2 stars, because in my journal, if I feel nothing, that means it's a 2-star book. I don't hate it, I just don't have any feelings. So the next book I read, Reluctant Immortals, and I had really high expectations for this book, and it was okay. I enjoyed it. I liked the fact that it was like taking these female characters from literature that are often like overlooked and kind of like disregarded, and gave them a story, gave them their voice back. But I had a hard time with like the lines between reality and fiction, and I'm sure that that is like part of the author's intention, but like sometimes I had a hard time like placing the world, like, okay, but what's real and what's not? Is it okay to be a vampire? There's a question for you. I don't know. I still am like on the fence about it. Like, and I think maybe because I love Dracula so much, maybe that's part of where like my like uncertainty on how I feel comes from. Just because Like, I love that piece of literature, and so to take characters from that literature and like, ooh, basically write a fan fiction for them is like kind of like, I don't know. So I'm just not sure how I feel. And I always feel that way when like characters are taken from an already existing story and then given a new adventure by a different author. I just like, I don't know, I struggle with that. What are your feelings on it? I would love to know. Yeah, what are your feelings? Okay, so next was another book of the month book. Since I'm not buying books, I'm trying really hard to get through the ones that I have on my shelf, or like, cause I've paid ahead for book of the month, so I do still get these. So that's where my new books are coming from. So I read Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austin, and I believe she's the one who did Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead, or something along those lines. But I really enjoyed this character. It's called Interesting Facts About Space because when she gets nervous, she calls her mom and tells her interesting facts about space. And her mom is like so incredible and supportive through the whole thing. This character kind of coming to terms with trauma that has been kind of blocked out and coming to terms with it, working through it, kind of doing like the work of like healing her inner child. I found it to be very lovely. I really, really enjoyed this story. The next book I read was also a library book, The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson, who also did House of Hunger, and I loved it. I think I really like Alexis Henderson because I loved the House of Hunger, and The Year of the Witching was no different. It was really, really great, but I can't remember details that are not like spoilers to share with you. So the things that I want to say, I should not say because I don't want to ruin your experience reading the book. It was really good though, so if you enjoy a witchy story, The Year of the Witching, it's a good one. Next was Big Swiss. This was really interesting because the main character works as she like transcribes dictation from this therapist's appointments, and he's like a sex therapist, and so she hears really interesting things from really interesting people, and then as she goes out in the world, she recognizes their voices and knows lots of details about their lives. And one of those people is someone that she calls Big Swiss, and she meets Big Swiss, and so much happens. I found it to be really interesting. Like, there were definitely like, are you being a good person right now? Not so sure. There were definitely moments like that, but they're supposed to be like that. It acknowledges it. But I really, really enjoyed the way that the story was told, like with her listening to the dictation and things like that. It was just really interesting the way things came about and just the style of the storytelling. I really loved it. The last book I read in February was Red Rising, which I know people say that they love, and I love science fiction, so I assumed that I would love it too. It kind of had like a baby's first sci-fi feeling to it to me. I just like, I don't know, I never felt truly invested, I guess, in the whole thing. So I'm not sure why that was my experience, but yeah, I don't think I'm gonna continue with the series because I just didn't feel like super called to it at all. So the next book I read was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This book was given to me by a friend of my husband, and he was just like offloading a bunch of books, and that was one that was in the stack. So this was my first Gillian Flynn because I have not read Gone Girl or anything else by her. It did get me because like I fell for like the red herring, and so I did really enjoy that aspect of the story, but there was a little bit too much sexualization of young girls for me to feel super comfortable. I was really bothered by the dynamic of this grown woman and her teenage sister. The power structure, I guess, between like in their relationship was just really uncomfortable, and it's supposed to be, but like, oh man, yeah, it was just really unsettling. If you enjoy a thriller though, it was a good book. Another book of the month book, but it was Heartless Hunter, and I enjoyed it. Like, I'm not big on romance, but it's a romantasy. I'm also not big on fantasy, but a romantasy maybe I like based on my feelings about Fourth Wing. So I was like, I'll give it a try, yeah. Some of the writing felt a little like amateur and clunky, but I think that this is geared towards YA, and so keeping that in mind, it's enjoyable. If you can enjoy a YA fantasy or a YA romance, then it should be good. Although I think there's like some of the romance, trying to remember, because I don't think the romance is YA. So I guess I don't know who this is geared towards. I don't know. But I read it and I was like, did I like this? I can't tell. So I gave it to my mom and asked her to read it. And she liked it. So I think we'll continue with this series together as future books come out. So far, so good. Next, I read a nonfiction, like self-care book called Goblin Mode, which it's just about being cozy in your own goblin core life that you are living. So yeah, it was simple and great and made me feel really cozy and made me want to get a pet cricket. That was my big takeaway. Oh, okay, and then next I decided to jump into the world of Allie Hazelwood. I know, crazy for like a non-romance person. What are you doing? What are you thinking? You're gonna hate it. So I read The Love Hypothesis. I got that from the library. And I had a good time. I thought that Adam sounded way too huge. Like, why is his body so big? Why can he fit full parts of her body inside of his mouth like it's no big deal? Like, is he a giant? I'm not sure. So I thought that was a little excessive, but my friend Katie, who reads all of Allie Hazelwood's books, said that that's always like the big critique, is that the guys are too big. And yeah, I'm like, why is he so giant? Like, but other than that, I enjoyed it. And then like right as I finished Love Theoretically, my hold at the library came up, so I was like, well, I should probably space them apart, but here we go. There's a long line of people behind me, so I'll just listen to it. We'll just keep going. And I think I enjoyed Love Theoretically even more than The Love Hypothesis. Maybe because the main character in it, the guy, didn't seem quite so excessively large. Like, it didn't seem comical to me at points. So I think maybe I found him more appealing. I don't know. I enjoyed the romance. I don't know what it is about the way that Allie Hazelwood writes, because she's still writing like really like quirky, awkward girls. And so it's still definitely that thing where it's like awkward reading, and like some of her spice is pretty spicy. I don't really enjoy spice in my books, but I don't know. I enjoyed these books. I don't know. So I'm like, I guess maybe Allie Hazelwood works for me. I don't know. And I think it's like her characters are usually like they have like a mission. There's something that they're working to accomplish, and so there's something for me to be like following that isn't just the romance, and so maybe that's like part of it too. Getting close here. So the next book I read was An Artist of the Floating World by Kazuo Ishiguro. I love Kazuo Ishiguro, so I wanted to kind of start reading some of his just like less popular works that I have on my shelf. And this was like very much kind of like a slice of life situation. Like, there wasn't a huge thing happening that the story wrapped around, but it is about this family living in Japan after the war years, and this older man kind of coming to terms with a role that he played in the messages of the military and things during wartime. Him coming to terms with that and like making peace with decisions that he had made as a young man, I found really beautiful and hopeful, really simple, but I enjoyed it. And I did tell a friend, if you loved Godzilla -1, because that's an incredible movie, if you really enjoyed like the human aspect of the story of these people living in Japan after the war, trying to recover that human part of the story, if you really liked that, then I think you would enjoy this book, because it is similar in the sense that it is kind of giving you a glimpse into what that time was really like and what the struggles were. So still love Kazuo Ishiguro. So next was None of This Is True. I read this with my mom and we both loved it. I thought it was great. I I mean, I'm not sure if I gave it 5 stars. It's hard for me to give a thriller 5 stars for some reason, but I did really, really enjoy it. Had a good time. Josie's crazy. What's happening? None of this is true. When it was done, I was like, this is an apt title. What is true? What do I even think now that this is all done? Like, what am I walking away with? I'm not even sure. I still have so many questions, and in the best way possible. So yeah, if you love a thriller, go for it. And then the last book that I have finished so far this year, Butcher and Blackbird, which is also a romance, but following a serial killer who kills serial killers. So it definitely has some like dark undertones, lots of like dark humor, and the spice in this is like, some people are gonna be really, really uncomfortable with it. I wasn't uncomfortable, and I'm not sure what that says about me, especially as a person who doesn't normally like spice. So yeah, I don't know, I have questions, but I will for sure continue with this series because I really enjoyed both of the characters in it. I'm interested to see where this journey is taking them, so I will for sure continue. There you have it. Those are the books that I've read so far in 2024. January, February, and most of March. Thank you for being here. Have you read any of these books this year, or maybe before this year, because some of them are older? And how are you doing with your book buying? Are you still buying excessive books, or are you utilizing your library? And if you are not utilizing your library, how can you motivate yourself to do that? Because it's an amazing resource and libraries need to be supported. Would love to hear your thoughts on these books. I am going to try to jump in and do a few more vlogs. Like maybe I'll do a productivity vlog since I've just been like so busy. Like maybe that's the route I need to go with my vlogs, because most of my reading is happening in audiobook form while accomplishing the tasks that I need to be doing for work. So my ADHD brain, it helps me to keep pace with the tasks that I need to accomplish. So I think that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this little recap, and I would love to hear what you're reading. So share in the comments below. I will see you next time. Bye.